Hey folks, this is Rob Mitzner and I'm here at C Room Studio in Brooklyn, and I'm going to teach you the right way to tune a snare drum. You might have been taught that the right way to do it is to tune in a crossways pattern with the lugs as if you were changing a tire. That's the way I learned to tune a snare. But I think there's a better way. If you use two drum keys, you can tighten opposite lugs at the same time and create what's called tension bands. The tension bands are even across the head, so you don't end up with any spots of weird tension in the wrong places. You want the tension to be focused in the center of the drum. You want the drum to be in tune. So we're going to be changing both the resonant head and the batter head today. Here are the things we've got. Besides the two drum keys, I've got the magnetic key from Remo here, and I've got a couple other types as well. I've got a dry cloth that I'm going to use to wipe the dust off the bearing edge of the drum. I've got some sticks because I'm going to be tapping, of course. I've also got this drum dial, which I just recently started using, and I really like it. I think it's a great way to finish the job. Once you've got the head on there, once you've got it seated, once things are sounding okay, this really can get your tuning dialed in to an even greater level. I've also got the bearing edge conditioner from Drumdial, and I'm going to be trying that out just to make sure that the head gets seated on there. If you have warped bearing edges or any imperfections, sometimes the head doesn't get seated underneath the hoop quite right, and this bearing edge conditioner is one thing that can help that. So since we're going to be changing the resonant head first, here are the heads we've got. I've got this 3mm Ambassador snare side head, very thin. And then for the batter head, I've got this controlled sound coated head. And this is a single ply head that's 12mm, but we've got this coating ring on the inside, and that kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You get a focused sound of a single of a double ply head, but you get a more open tone, which I really dig. The first thing we're going to do is, well, we've already done it. We're going to take our snare and move it away from the kit. Drum sets have a lot of rings and rattles and extra sounds, and you don't want to hear all that stuff while you're tuning. It's just going to get in the way. We're going to be changing the resonant head first. So I'm going to pop my snares off. They were already off, but I'll turn them off. To release the tension, I'm going to flip my drum over. I'm going to grab my drum key, and I'm going to release my snares here so that I can change the resonant head. It's been a while since I changed the resonant head on this drum. It's been pretty dialed in for a while. I like the tone. This is a good time to change it because it's been a minute. So I'm going to take off my snares. There we go. These are the wide snare wires from Fat Cat. I really like these. They're dual adjustable. So we are going to remove the head. So use my two drum keys. This is just right here what I'm doing right now. This is how we're going to tune up too. Don't necessarily have to do that when you're detuning, but we'll just to show you how it goes. As far as the tuning of your resonant head, you don't necessarily want to over tension it, because if you over tension the head, it's going to be too choked off. You're going to lose the tone. So one thing that the drum dial is good for is that it'll help you, make sure that you're in the right time zone, as it were, with your tuning. All right, and there we go. Yeah, that definitely looks like it's been through a few gigs. So as we can see, there's a lot of dust going on here. So I'm going to take my dry cloth here. You don't really want to wet the cloth. I mean, these are wood drums. A little bit of dampness probably won't hurt them, but you don't really want the wood to get wet. I've got a lot of crud inside this drum. I'm gonna just dump it on the floor and vacuum it up later. I'm gonna wipe this down. My bearing edge looks pretty immaculate. Looks pretty great, but we're gonna use some of that bearing edge conditioner anyway, and that'll be the next step. I've never tried this before, but I really think it's a good idea. So I read the directions. Let's just apply a little along the outside. It's almost like chapstick for your drum. It smells pleasant. That's great. I'm into it. All right. So I've got a little bearing edge conditioner around here just to help the new head get seated on the hoop. I'm going to grab my new head here. I'm going to throw it right on there. Looks good. I'm going to wipe my hoop down just a bit too, without getting rid of all the screws here. And let's pop the new head on. It's always exciting to change the head on a snare. It's like getting a new pair of pants. Looks like the snare's getting a new pair of pants. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I've got the head on there. It looks like it's seated on there pretty well, right? Everything looks good. So I'm going to go around with the screws and I'm going to make them what's called finger tight. So that just means that they're not going to wiggle around. One thing you really got to watch out for when you're tuning is that a screw may not be as tight as it feels, or it might be tighter than it feels. The feel of the screw is not an indicator of how tight it is. So what we want to do is we want to use our ears. We're going to tap on the different spots to make sure that the tuning is right. But we're also going to use the drum dial to get us home. Most snare drums, this is a 14-inch snare drum, most snare drums have 10 of these. So you've got 2 sets of 5. And that's how we're going to be tensioning the head. So now for the exciting new part. I'm going to grab my 2 drum keys and I'm going to tune opposite lugs. I'm going to make about a quarter to a half a turn at a time. You don't want to tighten the head too quickly because then you're going to end up with uneven tension bands. You're going to get stretching. It's going to be a mess. It's not going to sound good. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to do about a half turn. Then I'm going to move clockwise. I'm going to do another half turn right here. That looks good. Let's do it again. Very good. Switch hands. All right. So we've done that for all 5. Now, one thing is, sometimes you get these like little wrinkles in the head and spots where it might not be tensioned as evenly. That's what we're trying to avoid, and that's what we're trying to fix by using the 2 keys. So I see one spot right here where I've got a little less tension. I'm just gonna do a little bit extra to try to move that out. Just remember, when you tighten one screw or loosen one screw, it affects all the other screws. It's like being on a moon bounce. If you jump on one spot, you could feel it in another spot. Or maybe it's like a mattress, I'm not sure. But anyway, so you've got that analogy. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to do my 2 drum keys again and do another half turn. So there's going to be 5 of these. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now I'm going to tap a little. Let's just check this out. I'm going to get my, you could tap with your finger, you could tap with a stick. These seem a little lower on this side, and that makes sense because that's a bit, that's the area where I had the little wrinkle in the head. So I'm just going to give this a tiny bump over here, right? You want that head, resonant head to be pretty tight. You don't want to make it too tight. On the drum dial, we're going to shoot for something like 81, 82, something like that. That's about where I think it sounded the best. All right, that sounds pretty good. It's pretty even. Let's get the drum dial going. They send you when you get a drum dial, they send you one of these nifty little glass pieces so that you can calibrate it before you start. I have found that is important because you want this to be measuring the tension at just the right amount. So here's what we do. Take the piece of glass, turn on the drum dial. It has this neat little light feature, so we've got the light. Drum dial goes up to 100. And it measures the tension in that way. So there's a little plunger right here. So that little plunger pushes on the head, and that measures the tension in each spot. So we're going to pop our drum dial on the table and we're going to hit this calibrate button for 3 seconds per the instructions. They also give you this neat little spacer because you want it to be even distance from each lug. So we're going to start right here. So we're at 73. So that's a little low. So we're going to start cranking that up just a bit. I don't want to go too drastically at once because, again, we don't want to stretch the head unevenly. I'm up right now to about 77. We're already at 78 here. 77. Okay, so we're getting pretty close. We're shooting for 81. That's where we're going to shoot for. There we go. So we're getting dialed into 81 here. Almost there. It's funny because this lug right here is feels real tight, but it actually is registering as lower than some others that aren't as tight. The head will settle as you put it on there. As you continue to tighten it, it'll settle and stretch. You know, you might hear a little cracking or whatever. Just keep rotating. You want to be on a flat surface too. That really helps. All right, I think we're pretty dialed in. I feel pretty good about where this is right now. So let's check out what this sounds like. The pitches all seem pretty close. I like it. Okay, now we're going to change the batter head. I've again got this controlled sound head here, which, as I mentioned, is 12 millimeters single ply, but then there is a 5 millimeter coating ring on the underside here, which really helps you focus the sound. So we are gonna pop off this head. This head also looks like it has been through a few drum wars, so probably a good time to change it. I am going to use my dry cloth, which is actually my my South by Southwest artist towel, which I've kept over the years, and I'm gonna get rid of all this little bit of crud that's inside of here. Looking good. I'm going to then grab the drum dial bearing edge conditioner, and I'm going to apply a bit of it to the outside here to help me get the head seated on. It really is like chapstick. So here we go. Gonna seat the head on there. Looks like a pretty nice fit. That's on there. I've got this. This looks pretty clean, but I'm gonna wipe it anyway just to make sure we don't have a ton of extra dust or anything going on. And then I'm gonna get that seated on there. All right. So we're gonna make it so these lugs are finger tight, which basically means that they don't have a lot of wiggle. All right, great. These are all finger tight. It's seated on there. I'm pretty happy with where I am. We're gonna repeat the process we did with the resonant head, and we're gonna grab our 2 drum keys. We're gonna put them across from each other, and we're going to tune 2 at once. So I'm gonna do about a half turn at a time. I'm gonna do a half turn there. That's 2. Make sure they're finger tight. 3. 4. 5. So that's good. So the head's on there. Gonna push just a little with my palm just to help it get stretched out. You don't want to push too hard. We're not trying to damage the head. We're just trying to get a little bit of stretching going on so that the head will settle more quickly. So we did a half turn. Now we're going to do, I'm going to use the bigger drum key. We're going to do another half turn all across in exactly the same way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hear that head stretching out. That's good. That's what we want. 5. So I think we're going to tune this one, because I have a rock gig that I'm doing later today. So we're going to tune this one to 87, 88, something like that. kind of like a medium range tuning. Now that I've put the head on there, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm going to tap a little bit, and I'm going to use one drum key, and I'm going to check and see where I'm at. Okay, so it seems to me that I'm still very loose. We're going to do another half turn with all of these. All right, that looks good. We did all 5 there. Great. Okay, let's tap. All right, so that one sounds a little lower. We're going to give it a little bump. I think the best way to do this is to tune by ear, tighten with the 2 drum keys, and then use the drum dial to finish the job. We're going to calibrate it again, just to make sure that it's set right. And we should be in good shape. It reads 0, and we're ready to start tuning. So I'm going to grab my key. I'm going to check where we're at. All right, this says 79, so we're not too far off where we want to be. I'm going to tune this up to about 82.5. And let's make that our target for now. Okay. Keep in mind, when you tighten one screw, it affects the tension of the others as well. And so you might get a reading over here and then do some more stuff and then come back and you're not even anywhere near where you were. That's just the head stretching over the drum. Let's tune that. We're at 79 here. When you first start tuning with the drum dial, I found that it's good to go a little bit over the reading that you're looking for, because as the head keeps stretching, the tension keeps changing, it'll settle into where you want to be. We're going to see how that sounds. That already says 83, but it feels real loose. Don't be fooled. That's the key. So I'm going to leave it where it is for now, and I'm going to go tune some other stuff and come back to it. Now I'm going to take my palm and I'm just going to press on the head of the drum just a little to stretch it. We'll do it very gently. Now that reads 85, so that means we've gone too far. Make sure you don't put your arm on the drum. That will change the tension. So let's tap a little now. We seem to be all right. Feeling like I'm in pretty good shape. I'm going to flip the drum back over. I'm going to put my snare wires back on. So now we've got our snares popped back on there. We're going to put them on, see where we're at. It's a pretty fat sound. Pretty happy with that. Pretty much dialed in exactly where I want it. This has been how to tune a snare drum using 2 drum keys. And as you can see, it's pretty easy to do, and it's not that different than doing it in the crossways pattern. But I think it helps get the head settled on there a little better, and I think it makes it so you don't have any weird tension spots in parts of the head where you don't want them. You want the tension to be focused right in the center. Anyway, thanks for watching. This is Rob Mitzner from C Room Studio, and I will see you next time.